Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the Harun Islamic Statistical HISC Seerah session 217. We're just completing the farewell pilgrimage and the Prophet's return to Medina after the farewell pilgrimage and the starts of his final days and months, inshallah. So a quick recap of the last session, which was the farewell pilgrimage. So the one before that, we talked about when the Prophet is leaving for the al-Wada in the 10th year of the Hijra with about 100,000 pilgrims. And he does the duties of the Hajj and reminds people to take their learning of Hajj from him. So the Tawaf, the Sa'i, and all the other rituals. And we talked about in the previous session the Hajj Quran, Hajj Ifrad, and Hajj Tamattu, the sacrificing of the camels, and the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, which goes through the rituals. In the previous session, we talked about the sermons of the Prophet on the farewell pilgrimage. The Prophet some of the messages, the core messages from the sermons was the sanctity of the Muslim blood and honor and wealth. How the Prophet is resetting Islam and all the norms from before. So he's cancelling out the rituals and the philosophies and the attitudes of the days of Jahiliyyah, pre-Islam. So the practices around blood feuds, interest, all of those things, and the tribalism were cancelled. And then as a revolutionary edict, protecting the honor and the sanctity of women, of the Muslim women, and an explanation of the rights and duties therein, the importance of holding onto the Quran and the Sunnah, adherence to the 5 pillars, and then once the crowd had testified that the Prophet has been successful in delivering his message, Allah then revealed, on this day I've perfected your religion for you and have completed my favor upon you and chosen for you Islam as your deen. Other things that in the farewell message was the accountability on the Day of Judgment, treating parents well, avoiding fitna and infighting amongst the Muslims, keeping the calendar months in the sequence that they are, doing da'wah and spreading the word to other people, and not speaking against other Muslims, keeping the trust of other Muslims, their money and their property, abolishing racism and tribalism or like nationalism, and reinforcing the fact that no Arab is superior to a non-Arab, nor a black person inferior to anyone else. It's only piety that matters. And then the importance of the Ummah and the reference for everything needs to be to Islam. So they were the key messages from the sermons. And obviously this is a universal message for all times. So inshallah, that's what we talked about last week. The other things was that now the Prophet, he's returning to Medina. So we're sort of finishing off once he's done the Tawaf al-Wada. He starts his journey to Medina. And again, just a point of fiqh, the Prophet, he spent 3 nights in Mina. And he allowed people to leave after 2 nights. So, it said it's permissible to leave after 2 nights. But the Prophet, he spent 3 nights in Mina, and then he did Tawaf al-Wada, and then started his return journey to Medina. And again, from the fiqh of Hajj, it's the very last thing you should do in Mecca is the Tawaf al-Wada, and then you make your way to your destination, and that marks the end of the rituals of Hajj. A couple of other things just to discuss around the Hajj, and it's essentially the where we get Masjid-e Aisha from, and this incident essentially. Aisha narrates in the first person that when she first arrived in Mecca on the 4th of al-Hijjah with the Prophet ﷺ, she said that the Prophet ﷺ entered into his tent and she was crying. So the Prophet ﷺ said, what's the matter? Have you started your menses? And the Prophet ﷺ knew that surely that was the main reason why somebody would be crying as they enter into Mecca for the Hajj. And so Aisha, she's crying. So the Prophet says, have you started your menses? And so she said yes. And the Prophet said, don't worry. This is something that Allah has ordained for all the daughters of Adam. So do everything that the other Hujjaj do except for Tawaf. So, all the other rituals are permissible except for the circumambulation of the Kaaba, except the Tawaf. And again, so that was a very reassuring message that the Prophet gave to Aisha radiallahu anha, and obviously to all the other ladies who learn from that. And then obviously she did that, and then before the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, she asks the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, are all of your wives going back having performed Umrah and Hajj, and I only have the Hajj? And so the Prophet says, Ya Aisha, that is sufficient. That's all you need. You've done your Hajj. That's fine. And Aisha radiallahu anha, being who she is, she says, but your wives will have double and I have only one. No, I'm not going to accept that. So then the Prophet told Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr to take Aisha to Taneem, which is, and we've previously talked about the Haram, the sacred sort of land out, that or the area around Mecca or within Mecca, which is holy, which is the Haram, and so the closest, geographically to the Kaaba that is outside of Haram is a place called Taneem. And so the Prophet he asked Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr to take Aisha to Taneem, and then he instructed her to put on her ihram, and then she should enter into the Haram, and then she can do her Umrah from there. So that's what Abdurrahman did. He took her there. He himself didn't do Tawaf. He didn't do another Umrah, but he chaperoned Aisha as she did it. And obviously later on, that place in Taneem is where people then built the Masjid-e Aisha, and again, for the pilgrims, whether for Hajj or Umrah, that's where they go still to this day in order to do the two nafil, make the intention, put on your ihram, and then enter in and do another Umrah. So that's around that particular instance. And then once she'd done that, she then, along with Abdurrahman, caught up with the Prophet on the way back to Medina. Another story to mention on the return journey of the Prophet, and it's from the sort of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah perspective, it's not something which is particularly controversial, but again, some of the people, the Shia, they read into this particular instance more than what we would consider to be significant. So this is the incident of Ghadir Khum, where the Prophet praises Ali ibn Abi Talib. So essentially, what happened was that there's an area, there's a well, the well of Khum, and which is outside of Mecca, and people started complaining about Ali to the Prophet ﷺ. So again, if we just sort of rewind, Ali was sent to Yemen to look after the people there, to govern over the people there, and then he was instructed to come back to perform the Hajj and bring 100 camels for the Prophet ﷺ from Yemen. And so Ali, as being sort of the governor of the area, coming back, as he's approaching Mecca, this is in the early days of the al-Hijjah, he's getting towards the sort of outskirts of Mecca, and so he's eager to meet the Prophet ﷺ. So he appoints somebody to be in charge. So he delegates somebody to be in charge of the remainder of the entourage as they're coming into towards Mecca, and he himself proceeds sort of quickly so that he can sort of catch up with the Prophet ﷺ and meet him and meet and greet. And then these people, they come with the zakah and the sadaqa from Yemen, and obviously the camels of the Prophet ﷺ. So Ali, he goes forward, meets the Prophet ﷺ, and then he returns to the entourage as they're coming into to Mecca. The person that was appointed to sort of be his deputy, the emir of the people, he took it upon himself to use some of the camels to carry some of the goods. So these were the camels of the sadaqa, and zakah. So he used some of those camels to carry some of the goods, and he took some of the cloth or the shirts from amongst the sadaqa, and he distributed it to some of the elders of the entourage. And his thinking was that, you know, because this is from the sadaqa, and they are the people who are taking the sadaqa, that, you know, they have a right upon that. So when Ali, he came back after meeting the Prophet ﷺ, he was horrified that they'd actually done this, and so he obviously criticized the deputy for doing that. And he, you know, told the people to take their shirts off, put it back in the sadaqa, and he said, "You're not allowed to do this." And then obviously because of that, there was some bad feeling amongst those people, and they started to get irritated with Ali ibn Abi Talib, and were quite annoyed with being told off. So once Hajj had finished, they went to the Prophet ﷺ and they complained about what Ali had done. So then the Prophet ﷺ, he gathered everybody around near this well at Ghadir Khum, and he said in a sort of a very famous bayan that whoever is the mawla of Ali, I am the mawla of Ali, and Ali is to me like Harun and Musa were. So stop complaining to me about Ali. I leave behind two things, and as for the first of them, hold on to it, and it is the book of Allah. And for the second, fear Allah with regards to my family. Right? So very sort of explicit, saying that, Ali is part of me, I'm part of Ali. The relationship is like, Harun and Musa, like Harun was to Musa. Stop complaining, stop irritating me by these sort of very trivial things. Ali was right in what he was basically saying, and then obviously the saying that the two things, I leave for you are the book, hold on to the book of Allah. And the second is fear Allah with regards to my family, Ahlul Bayt. Basically saying, treat his family well after he is gone. So So that's the context of that, Mawla Ali. So as people from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we see that as the Prophet praising Ali, exalting his status amongst the people who were criticizing him and saying, look, basically, he's right, listen to him, and stop this sort of little these sort of this piffling little irritation against Ali, and love Ali as I love Ali. And on one person, he sort of patted him on the chest and said, as the people were complaining about Ali, there was another person who was saying, I agree. And the Prophet, he patted this, the person on the chest and said, it seems that you dislike Ali. And he goes, yes, I dislike Ali. And then he patted him on the chest and said, you should love Ali. And this person later on said that, after the Prophet said that, I loved Ali as much as I loved anyone else. So again, we don't see this, people from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as being an indication that political authority should pass on to Ali after the Prophet ﷺ passes away. This is just basically saying, treat him well. Don't, take his criticism of you on these affairs to heart. And that's where we go. Obviously, people from the Shia Ali, they put an interpretation into this, Mawla Ali that is, frankly not there. That they exaggerate the significance of this and, give it some political connotations, which clearly is not there. And even when the Prophet passed away, within a few months of this, as they're deciding on who should be the next Khalif, which we'll briefly probably talk about when we sort of come to the conclusion of the Seerah, nobody brought up this incident of Ghadir Khum as saying, oh, but the Prophet said this, therefore Ali should be the rightful Khalif. Nobody brought that up because the context was quite clear. So that's another incident on the return back to Medina. And then the other big thing was that the Prophet ﷺ, he then wanted to send a message to the Muslims about how they should conduct their affairs. So the Byzantium army, the Romans, we've talked before about how they were, persecuting the Muslims and even the Muslim converts within their territory. And we talked about how they killed people who became Muslim. So, we talked about the killing of Farwa bin Amr al-Judami, who was sort of one of their own. One of their senior sort of generals or noblemen. He became a Muslim. And then he was killed in a very cruel way, and the Byzantium Christians, they were very arrogant towards the Muslims, and they were persecuting the Muslims. And obviously there was the Battle of Mu'tah, which the Prophet embarked on in order to. Battle of Tabuk, where the Prophet embarked on as part of the payback for the Battle of Mu'tah, again, which we'll briefly touch on. So the Prophet he decided in the last month. So we have the Prophet returning to Medina in Dhul Hijjah, at the end of Dhul Hijjah. So he stayed in. He goes from Mecca to Medina, and that's his last journey. He doesn't leave Medina at all after this. He stays, so it's in Dhul Hijjah, Muharram of the 11th year starts, and then in Safar, towards the end of Safar of the 11th year, he decides to send an army to as-Sham and Palestine, and puts in charge Usama bin Zayd bin al-Haritha. And amongst the army are very senior people, Abu Bakr and Umar, but Usama bin Zayd is appointed as the leader of that army, and he's only 16, 17 at the time. So obviously there's a lot of people, criticizing this decision. Somebody who is so young, leading very senior people as the emir of the army. But the Prophet, he appoints Usama bin Zayd and orders the Muslims to gather their horses, and the orders are to have the horses of the Muslims tread on the lands bordering al-Balqa and al-Duram of Palestine. And it's clear the Prophet wants to send a message to the Byzantine army that the Muslims are here to stay, to put confidence into the hearts of the Muslims, that they need to expand the Muslim empire northwards into Byzantium, and to deliver a message to people in the northern areas, in as-Sham and Palestine, that the brutality that the church was inflicting on the Muslims cannot go unpunished. And so with all these reasons, the army was sent forth. So people are criticizing the decision, even of the Prophet ﷺ, to appoint Usama, and the Prophet ﷺ then addressed that shortly before he sort of passed away. He said, "No wonder you contest his leadership, for you have already contested the leadership of his father, Zayd bin Haritha. Yes, by Allah, his father, who was one of the most beloved people to me, was quite efficient for leadership, and this son of his is one of the most beloved individuals to me after his father." So again, just trying to, personally put the Prophet's seal of approval to the naysayers around the appointment of Usama ibn Zayd ibn Haritha. And again, just to reiterate, Usama's father, Zayd, he was adopted by the Prophet ﷺ as his son. Was gifted by Khadija, and the Prophet ﷺ loved him so much he adopted him as his son. And then Islam abolished that type of adoption, and then he got his own name. Rather than Zayd bin Muhammad, it became Zayd bin Haritha. And then the Prophet, and the Sahabi were well known to say, that if Zayd had been alive when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, nobody would have thought of anyone else other than Zayd to take over the leadership of the Muslims after the Prophet ﷺ. But Zayd, he was obviously martyred in the Battle of Mu'tah. He was married to Zainab ibn Jahsh, and we talked about that initially, and then it didn't work out, and then they divorced, and the Prophet then went on to marry Zainab, which caused its own controversy. And then Zayd also married Ayman. So Ayman, she was one of the sort of very few people around who knew both the mother and father of the Prophet ﷺ. And she was the servant of Amina. She was a young girl, and she was a servant of Amina, and she had taken care of the Prophet ﷺ when the Prophet ﷺ was a young child. So Ayman, she was like a mother figure, maternal figure to the Prophet ﷺ, and then she was married off to Zayd. Again, she wasn't an old woman; she was a young lady. She married Zayd. They had a child, Usama. And obviously the child Usama was, born sort of 15, 16 years ago prior to this point in Mecca, and grew up, in and around the household of the Prophet ﷺ. So it was raised, by the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, was very fond of Zayd, and then obviously very, very fond of Usama as well. And the people gave sort of a title to Usama, and his title was Hibba Rasulullah, the love of the messenger. So everybody knew that Usama was very dear to the Prophet. And when we talked about the sort of story where Usama was a bit naive, but people knew that Usama was loved by the Prophet. And when there was the story of this noble woman from the Quraysh caught stealing, they asked Zayd to try and intercede on her behalf, and the Prophet, got angry and said, verily, if the daughter of Muhammad, Fatima, if she was caught stealing, I would chop her hands off, and so again, and said, look, this is the thing that led to the ruin of previous generations, is that they would treat the nobility different to the poor people. So, but the people knew that the Prophet had a soft spot for Usama, which is why they, coerced him into doing that task. So Zayd passed away at the Battle of Mu'tah. He was shaheed. Usama's now about 16, 17 years old. He's appointed as a leader of the expedition to as-Sham, and the Prophet then quells this racism. Or this criticism of Usama. And again, one of the other things that people were saying is that he is not Qurayshi. So this tribalism, he's not Qurayshi, he's not worthy of leading. And also the fact that his father was a freed slave, a mawla. So a freed slave, again, this sort of tribalism, sort of snobbery, racism towards these other people was coming in, was the subtext against people criticizing Usama, not just that he was young. But the Prophet, as I said, he quelled that, and then reaffirmed Usama to be the leader. By Allah, he is worthy of being a leader. This man, Usama, is the most beloved of the people to me after his father Zayd. And then he instructs Usama, go to where your father was killed. So again, just giving added weight to the mission of Usama ibn Zayd. And again, this is a really famous thing of the army then, towards the end of Safar, in the 11th year, they make the preparations and they actually leave Medina on their journey, and they, within a day or two after having left Medina, that the Prophet falls ill, and then the army pauses and camps outside of Medina because they're not sure what they want to do, because they hear the Prophet is ill. How ill is he? They don't know, so they camp, and then sort of later on, a few days later, Usama then returns to see the Prophet, and the Prophet is on his deathbed, and he instructs the army of Usama to be sent. And then when the Prophet does pass away, the army isn't sent. The army still stays stationed there, and it's only sent after they appoint Abu Bakr as the Khalif. And then one of the very first things Abu Bakr does, he then reactivates that order to dispatch the army. So although the Prophet had specifically and explicitly ordered the army to go, the army, stayed there, after the death of the Prophet. But we all know that the army of Usama went, very symbolic mission. They go to Sham, and the very first territory to be conquered in the reign of Abu Bakr as Khalif was against the Romans, was against the Byzantium Empire, and the Muslims started conquering as-Sham as instructed by the Prophet ﷺ, and then obviously Al-Quds, Jerusalem, fell during the first few days of the Khilafah of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and the very famous journey of him traveling there to get the keys of Jerusalem. So that's the sort of the the end of the main Seerah, and now we're sort of into into Safar of the 11th year of Hijrah, the very last days of the Prophet's life. So briefly, we'll just sort of mention, and we'll probably do that in more detail next time, in terms of some of the sort of predictions of the end of the Prophet. So the sort of, the Prophet knew that he was coming towards the end of his time. And again, we'll sort of recap this next time, but just briefly to mention that in the 10th year of Hijrah, the Prophet secluded himself for 20 days during Ramadan, in contrast to 10 in the previous years. Jibril reviewed the Quran twice with him during Ramadan of the 10th year, and again, previously Jibril had only gone through the Quran once every Ramadan with the Prophet ﷺ. And again, we talked about how the Prophet ﷺ said in Hajjat al-Wada, but I don't know if I'm going to meet you again at this place after this current year. His message to Mu'adh ibn Jabal when he sends him to Yemen, so but he might not see me again. There are some narrations to say that Surah al-Nasr was revealed in this time, after the Hajjat al-Wada. Other scholars say it was revealed, and we talked about this before, in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. After the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Surah al-Nasr was revealed then. Some say it was revealed twice, once after Hudaybiyah and again revealed towards the end of the Hajj, in the days of Tashriq. And so again, this is giving an indication that the end is coming. And then there's also other verses in the Quran, which we'll talk about next time, inshallah. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he goes and bids farewell to the martyrs of Uhud. Right? He goes one evening, goes to the place where all the martyrs of Uhud were buried, and he basically, he makes a little dua, and he says to them, "I'm going to precede you, and I have been made witness upon you by Allah. You will meet me at the Kawthar, the fountain, very soon, and I've been given the keys of the worldly treasure by Allah. I do not fear for you that you will turn by Allah. I do not fear for you that you will turn polytheists after me, but I fear the acquisition of worldly riches that should enrich and entice you, and you strike each other's neck." And he said that before he fell sick. And then some say literally the day before he fell ill, or in those days he went to al-Baqi, and he was ordered by Jibril to go to Jannah al-Baqi, and he made a dua there, and he said that he will meet the people in that cemetery very soon. So inshallah, we'll go through that next time, inshallah, and then we will do might take us a week or two to do the final illness of the process, and when he falls ill and then obviously passes away, and then the crisis of leadership after that, and the appointment of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq after that, inshallah. So until then, inshallah, do remember us in your du'as. And until next time, inshallah, bismillah. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم.